Hi, everyone, and thank you so much again for joining us today for our session on how to engage buyers and build deeper human connections. My name is Josh Baez. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at On24, and I am joined by my friends at Drift and Sendoso to talk about the importance of connections and how those connections to your audience and across their buying journeys lead to closed pipeline and more won deals. So I am joined by the marvelous Seele of Drift and Niel Shah of Sendoso. I'm so happy that you could both join me today. Niel, can you kick us off by introducing yourself?
Yes, first of all, thank you, Josh, so much for having me here. I'm super excited to be here. So for introductions, I'm Niel Shah. I am the Director of Product Marketing here at Sendoso. For folks who may not know what we do here at Sendoso, Sendoso is a leading sending management platform in the market. And basically, using the power of personalized gifting, we help sales and marketing leaders amplify their brand in the marketplace, close more deals, and drive more revenue.
Excellent. Thank you, Niel. Good to have you. Caitlin, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for introducing me, Josh. So my name is Seele. I'm the head of digital marketing here at Drift, and me and my team own all things digital experience. So how we really engage and develop meaningful buying journeys with our customers here at Drift and start conversations with them throughout. Drift is leading conversation cloud platform in the space right now, and we have helped hundreds and thousands of businesses start more meaningful conversations with their buyers and really enable folks to connect their go-to-market efforts across marketing, sales, and customer success.
That's awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you both. So, speaking of conversation, speaking of personalized sending, today's session, we're going to be covering 4 things. The new normal of today's buying experiences, how the digital landscape has evolved and continued to change. We're going to talk about how defining and addressing a new set of customer expectations. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with some key takeaways and how to put this all into action. The first thing that I want to kick us off with, Caitlin and Niel, is the fact that buyers have grown increasingly frustrated, I think, by poor online experiences. I think that this is really the elephant in the room, that many online experiences today are pretty lackluster. Caitlin, can you talk a little bit about the stats that we see below?
Certainly. So we've been studying trends in buying journeys and buyer experiences here at Drift for many years. In our most recent State of Conversational Marketing report, we surveyed hundreds of B2B professionals and found that not only are today's buyers very frustrated by online buying experiences at large, but they're getting frustrated at a faster rate than ever before. So we found that buyers today are 5.7% more likely to become frustrated by unresponsive brands on email and social. They're also 1.6% more likely to get frustrated by the kind of traditional process for engaging with your sales team via forms. This is really reflective of the fact that today's buyers want to engage with you and your brand on their terms, right? They want to be able to ask you a question and reply to your email and, send you a question on social media and a comment, and they expect brands are going to get back to them and engage. When they are on your website and have a question about your product and how they can help them, they want to book time to talk with your sales team, while they're right there, in that moment intent. They don't want to wait 24, 48 hours to kind of hear back from someone to schedule that conversation. And this really matches the trends that we're also seeing in terms of, not only getting frustrated by online experiences, but just not engaging as a result.
That's great. And on top of that, Sendoso's data is showing that buyers are getting less responsive too. Niel, can you talk about those stats?
Yeah, so we actually did an internal survey and targeted sales and marketing professionals. And actually, some of the results we got back were pretty interesting, right? So, and before I dive into the actual statistics, let me tell you a little bit of story, right? If you look at the just the evolution, right, on how marketers were getting in front of the buyers. If you look at the 80s or 90s, you would get a mail, right, and that was a way for marketers to get their products and services out there in front of the consumers. And then came email marketing, which really exploded in the 2000s, and also digital advertising, right? And so what's happened is, or the evolution all the way from 2000 to 2022 until now, pretty much all the businesses have adopted these strategies, called it email marketing and digital advertising. So while they gave you a competitive advantage in the early 2000s, it's a status quo approach now, right? And so what's that led is every business is using it, and so email click-through rates and digital advertising click-through rates are an all-time low, right? And that's a challenge. As a buyer, it's just getting increasingly difficult to respond to these ads.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point, Neil. I mean, I think it's all about the fact that like when something is so brand new, like and cutting edge, first to get in line is going to be the first to succeed. But once everyone starts to do it, like start to see that saturation. And I think that, it's only gotten more saturated as time goes on. One of the things I think that as marketers and even in general, we have a finite number of channels, but we're spending more than ever to reach our increasingly hard to reach buyers. Neil, can you elaborate a little bit more on what you were talking about and more specifically, like when it comes to how we can address this?
Yeah, and so, if you look at the click-through rates, right, even though we are aware that those are on a decline, but as sales and marketing professionals, if you look at the spend year over year, they continue to increase, right? So you look at 62% more emails, 22% more on ad spend, 28% more on, doing cold calls, increase in virtual events, right? So the point is, even though we're aware that the click-through rates have been declining, as marketing and sales professionals, we're using the same techniques and strategies. And so the question really is, okay, it's not the channels that need to evolve, it's actually how we use them. And there are a lot of different techniques and strategies which we will uncover during this webinar on how to actually effectively evolve and use the channels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Caitlin, do you have any other thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think to Neil's point right there, I think all this data, just as marketers, it really tells us that something has to change, right? About those strategies and tactics we're using. If we're seeing that buyers are more and more frustrated with all the campaigns we're running today, and we've got no shortage of campaigns, makes us kind of rethink, all right, how can I be providing a more engaging experience for all of my buyers?
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things that really comes out of this is that it's not just about doing more, having more. It's about like how you actually use those to achieve what's better. How do we scale? How do we grow? How do we make sure that we're being effective with what we have so that we're actually being like intentional and thoughtful about it? And I think that that's a big part of what we're going to be talking about today, where we're trying to understand, the purpose of having these personalized and meaningful connections, because that at the core of it is really what we're talking about. So I think the next area we want to talk about is that this digital playbook has changed. We've already mentioned a little bit about this. But Neil, I would love to have you go into a little bit more detail about this digital playbook and what it means for marketers in the next coming years.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we've seen back in, going just back a couple of years when, COVID hit back in 2020, right? And we've really seen the evolution of, the digital playbook, right? And how it's actually evolved during the past couple of years. There's a very interesting report from Gartner. It's called the CMO Leadership Vision 2022. And the top 3 trends that were really part of that report were, number one, customer journeys have evolved. I think we all know, back in the day, as a sales rep, or I would go in front of my customers, right, and do the sales pitch. So there was a lot of face-to-face interactions. But obviously, because of COVID and now we're living in a hybrid world, those trends have changed significantly. So we've gone from face-to-face interactions to online and hybrid experiences. Actually, tell you an interesting story here. I was recently at a Forrester B2B CX event in Nashville, and I actually happened to meet a lot of the sales reps at my company. And one of the questions I asked is, do you still go and meet your customers face-to-face? And they said, actually, we do everything over Zoom 99% of the time. So, this trend is definitely validated in those conversations. And so if you look in the future going into 2025, majority of the B2B sales interactions between suppliers, that's buyers and sellers, will definitely occur in digital channels. And listen, as CMOs, you're always going to need to find new ways to differentiate your marketing strategy. And that means if you're looking at your budgets and investment, or even 2022 and 2023 and beyond, more than about 20% of the CMO budget is earmarked for innovative programs that helps them fuel revenue and gives them a competitive advantage in this marketplace.
That's great. Thank you, Neil. And I think that one of those things you mentioned is that we need that competitive advantage. Personalization is becoming more and more imperative. Caitlin, can you talk a little bit about the need for personalization, especially when it comes to driving like things like conversations between people?
Completely. So I think the good news from some of all of these changes in the digital landscape and the broader, trends that are out there right now is that it presents a huge opportunity for marketers to meet their buyers kind of in that moment intent, and where they want to engage with you and deliver more personalized interactions and buying journeys, just to be more helpful as a brand. We're finding that 71% of buyers today actually expect companies to be delivering personalized interactions. And when we say personalization, I do not mean including like a high first name token at the start of your email address, right? It's leveraging all of the data you have available to you, especially in a highly digital environment, to really understand, okay, what are the topics that this person is interested in? What kind of content are they downloading? What sorts of blog posts are they reading and reviewing? And how do I use all that information to provide increasingly thoughtful and tailored conversations, recommendations, and solutions to them based on what we know that they're interested in? It's very similar to Niel's point to how you would have had a conversation with someone in the real world, right? Back before 2020. People want to ask you personal questions and really feel like you're listening to them. You're taking that moment to understand and recommend the next best solution. And if you can do that in a really personalized way at scales, 80% of buyers are more likely to buy from your brand. And that's a real testament to how important building that kind of human relationship with someone online is. It impacts not just your engagement and conversion rates on the marketing side, but really their holistic buyer journey with you through to when they're talking to your sales team and even after to when they become a customer.
Yeah, I love that. And that brings us to this new set of customer expectations. I think that one of the biggest things that we're taking away from this is that there's a lot that's changing. Customers are expecting businesses to deliver more, but in a way that feels more intentional, more personal, more relevant to them. Because I think that over these last few years, if we've learned anything, it's that there has been an inundation of marketing channels, tactics, content, noise, really. And so how do we cut through? There are three areas that we're going to be talking about today as related to ways to engage your buyers and build these connections. The first is around how to actually connect with your customers and keep things personalized across the journey from touch point to touch point. Then we're going to go into how to integrate and orchestrate these channels for continuous engagement. Caitlin, you talked a little bit about that and continuing the next step. And then finally, how do you actually start to engage and personalize to deliver more impactful experiences holistically? We're going to dive deeper into each of these starting right now. So the first thing is around connecting with your customers, and let's keep things personal. There are a lot of different ways to accomplish this. We see a few different graphs on screen here. Niel, can you talk about how Sendoso accomplishes these connections?
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. So, first of all, I think given the environment we are in today, if you look at the next, 6 months and even beyond in 2023, fundamentally, I think all businesses are challenged, right, to some extent, and they're always finding new ways to fuel revenue growth, right? And so, connecting with your buyers has never been actually more important than ever, right? So if you look at the typical customer lifecycle journey, that's kind of broken down into 5 main steps. Number one, if you're SDR trying to get the attention of a prospect, you want to drive interest, right? As your prospect moves throughout the sales cycle, at some point you want to continue to engage them with content. You want to accelerate your pipeline. At some point, that prospect will convert into customer. You want to onboard them successfully, and then eventually over the year or so have conversations around retention and renewals, right? So we at Sendoso strongly believe that personalized gifting is one way to really build that human connection with your buyers and prospects throughout the entire funnel, as you can see here, all the way from driving interest to continuing to retain them. And so if you look at this customer lifecycle journey, at Sendoso, we offer different types of gifting options, so that can range from branded merchandise to virtual experiences to e-gifts and many more, right? So one of the best ways to build human connection is to incorporate personalized gifting as part of your customer lifecycle journey And that's exactly, what we advocate here at Sendoso to our buyers.
Thanks, Neil. And on that note about personalization, Caitlin, there's an increasing degree of personalization as we see with market share. Can you talk a little bit more about that graph on the right?
Yeah, I think that point you just made there, Neil, about how important building a human experience and connection is at every stage in the buying journey is a really, really important one. And the exciting thing is that the data really backs that up, that companies who are able to deliver an increasingly personalized and human experience, even down to the one-to-one level, can have up to a 75% increase in market share as a result of building those really deep relationships with your buyers and with your customers and the broader community you're serving. Really makes an impact as well.
Yeah, that's great. And so the ways that we start to think about this and actually put it into action is, one way is with your channel. The channel mix that we're talking about, with all of the different ways that you are engaging your audiences, you need to make sure that we're taking into account all of the different data points that they're giving us. Caitlin, can you take the lead on this slide and talk to us a little bit more about what marketers need to know about how to actually start integrating these channels for that continuous and personalized engagement?
Yeah, so given how the digital landscape has evolved, right, as we've been talking about today, and also thinking through, all right, we need to be providing those more human buying experiences across the entire customer journey. You also need to make sure that you're doing this across every touch point someone's able to have with your brand, right? So that means encompassing all of your marketing channels and looking at your entire marketing ecosystem with one connected view, again, based on, designing the best kinds of experiences you possibly can for your buyers, the most relevant, the most personalized one for them. Here at Drift, we found the most impactful approach for us has been to develop truly integrated campaigns. So starting every campaign planning process that we do here with an integrated lens and saying, all right, how are the channels going to respond to and react to engagements and conversations our buyers are having in other places? A great example is that if someone's really engaged with you, say at an event or some sort of a trade show, you're making sure to adapt their advertising, email, and even website experiences, post that moment of engagement, really learning what you can, again, in terms of what are they going to be interested in, what are their challenges, have they engaged with our brand before, to really be customizing that buyer's journey as best you can, even up to a one-to-one level. And again, you want to be treating these conversations you're having with someone, whether it's emails, advertising, or on your website, as best you can with kind of what we call a conversational framework to really engage them, greet them in a personalized way, recognize the past interactions they've had with your brand. And again, just like if you were kind of a human-to-human interaction one-to-one, ask a question. What about this study or ebook that you downloaded are you finding most interesting? What's a question you have about this? Are you interested in learning more about this topic? They'll be able to engage with you and you'll be able to, again, provide that increasingly tailored experience throughout the rest of the buying journey.
That's great. Yeah. And I think that with that tailored experience, you start to learn more about your buyers and you also show them that you're interested in more about them. I think that that's a piece I think that a lot of businesses maybe tend to forget, is that it's not just about, producing X, Y, and Z. It's about actually showing and demonstrating the fact that we are here for our audiences. Without our audiences, we can't do much. We can't really find any kind of success at all without them. Neil, how does direct mail play into all of this? When it comes to connecting your channels, I know that thinking about hybrid channels and bridging that gap from digital to physical is becoming more important too. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think as Caitlin mentioned earlier, the brand experience that you provide to your buyers is very critical, right? And that means all the different touch points that are making across all these different channels need to look coherent and consistent, right? So just take an example of an SDR use case, right? An SDR is trying to reach a potential prospect, so they may use LinkedIn as a channel and offer e-gift as an option to take a meeting with you, right? Now, they can use the same experience on a chat. And then as marketers, when we are putting out ABM techniques, demand generation techniques, and also using social media platforms such as Google, LinkedIn, Twitter, we're giving the same level of brand experience across all these different touch points. So before you know, you're now actually giving them a human marketing experience that is consistent across all these different channels. And that's really the brand experience that you're providing to your buyers. So, again, for us, the way we look at channels is, marketers are using the status quo strategies. Personalized gifting is one way to really evolve these channels and have that consistent human marketing experience across all these channels.
Great. Thank you guys so much. So then the last piece of this is finally how we actually start to deliver these experiences. So there are conversations, there's personalized sending. There's a lot of things that go into each of these strategies. Caitlin, how do conversations play into this? Like, you talked a little bit about making sure that we're asking our buyers questions, we're learning from them, we're tailoring their experiences. Is there anything else that you want to add to making sure that we're delivering quality experiences to our buyers?
I think so. I think it's so important to think through that. When we say you need to start conversations, I don't just mean on your website, right? To Niel's point, it's really thinking about where can I open opportunities to have conversations with my buyers and my customers in every single channel, right? So even after that kind of, mail engagement too, right? If you're working on, say, like an ABM campaign or program, sure, you might have some sort of a direct mail offer in your channel mix there. But that's another opportunity, again, for, to enable someone on your SDR team on when to reach out, even hop on the phone with them, reach out again on LinkedIn. And when you want your marketing teams to be adapting how you're reaching out to people who say act on that offer and do book a meeting, and following through and continuing to have conversations, after they've talked to sales, really up until the point where they're past onboarding and really becoming a successful advocate for your brand. That's going to enable you to really accelerate conversion rates at every single funnel stage. So from an initial touch point where someone first engaged with you and wants to learn more about your business, through to when they are really in the weeds of learning the ins and outs of your product, how it can help them, achieve their goals. Opening up opportunities for conversations at every single point in the buyer's journey is so important. It's not just one or the other. And enabling everyone on your marketing team to think of that, really encouraging people to reply to your emails, right? Request that more information can just accelerate buyer journey so much.
That's great. Yeah. It's about engaging your buyers immediately and also in a tailored and very personalized way. And then Niel, what about when it comes to engaging your buyers remotely? Like, where does personalized sending fit into this?
Yeah, that's a great question, Josh. So, the way we look at personalized sending, I'll just give you some examples right up top of the bat, right? So, especially in ABM campaigns, you have to target the entire buying company, right? All the way from executives to your VPs to directors. And so what we realize is if a VP of marketing, let's just take that as an example of our buyer, right? He loves to play baseball, but then we just send him a golf kit, right? So that doesn't resonate. Think of a director of marketing who loves to cook, right? And then we send them the baseball kit. So I think personalized sending, the way we look at it is, you really need to research your buyers in and out. So that means look at the LinkedIn profiles, look at the Facebook profiles, get a deeper understanding of what their likes and dislikes are. And then as you're targeting them through ABM campaigns and using the power of personalized gifting throughout the customer lifecycle journey, make it relevant. So if they like to play baseball, send a baseball kit. If they like to have a glass of wine, send them some nice expensive wine. If they like to play golf, send them golf. And so that's what really personalized sending means: sending the right gifts to the right buyers at the right time that really resonates with them.
Yeah, one of the things, Niel, that you brought up that I think is an interesting point is that we've all been working remotely for going on 2 to 3 years now, and with all of the ways that we are engaging, like with Zoom meetings and all of that, like we see the backgrounds of our peers and our colleagues and our buyers. We see their backgrounds like every time we meet with them now. And so I think that there's another layer there where you can strike up a conversation about, hey, Josh, like I see you have a lot of plants in your background. That's really interesting. Can you tell me more? And then based on, like, Caitlin, that's all around the conversation aspect, and Niel, to act on that, like, think about sending someone something that's based on what's in their background. Like, it's a subtle thing, but I think that it shows the people that you're talking to that, oh, like, they're listening, like they're paying attention, and they're really making sure that, like, I feel seen when I meet with them. I think that can be especially important for, new prospects, for people that you're maybe cold calling or cold emailing. It's just another way to really form that connection and find that mutual interest.
Exactly, Josh. And like if you look at just sending or personalized gifting in general, it tends to be a lot more emotional versus very logical driven sending, right? So as you mentioned, like looking at individuals' background on Zoom, if they have books, then you kind of get a sense, okay, this person is a reader, right? And sort of there are different ways on how you can actually really understand the buyer and make sending really personalized.
That's great. Well, we are going to start wrapping this up, but before we do, I want to make sure that we leave the audience with some ways to actually start to put all of this into action. We've talked a lot about best practices. We've talked a lot about tips and tricks to making sure that your experiences are connected and personalized. But what about when it comes to actually having this in a use case? Caitlin, what are the key takeaways that you want to make sure that the audience has from this session, and what can you share about this use case that we have on screen here?
For sure. I think for a lot of what we've been talking about today, we really came back to the importance of engaging your buyers in a really personalized way at that moment of intent, right? Like while they're really thinking about you and researching with you. And you can use conversational marketing and the power of real-time conversations to have that instant engagement and conversation in so many different ways. Yes, that means on your website, right? So, say you are running an ABM campaign, for example, right? You want to really acknowledge the folks that have engaged with that campaign. Maybe they've taken you up on your offer. That direct mail piece, they've received it, they've really enjoyed it and provided that feedback to the sales team. You can really customize kind of the openers you're using across your website to engage and acknowledge folks of, hey, I know that you found this really interesting, you found it helpful. Do you have any more questions about it? Are you ready to learn more about this topic based on the most recent conversation you've had with someone on our team? And then you can carry that level of conversational marketing and personalization through to, say, your email marketing, really asking for that reply and that conversation, and people will get back to you. And there's ways that you can automatically route your sales team into that conversation to provide that super seamless handoff and just a really continuous buying experience for folks. You can also leverage other channels like video, for example, again, to be able to provide, personalized, whether it's demonstrations, answers to questions, or even walkthroughs of how other customers are using your product or solution. It kind of just makes everything so much more of a human buying experience than just sending someone to a landing page or sending somebody an ebook and saying, let me know if you've got a question. This enables you to kind of engage with them along the way throughout that process so they know, hey, this company, this team is really here to help me as I investigate what's working.
That's great. Thank you, Caitlin. And Niel, what are your key takeaways for our audience today? What can you share from this case from Sendoso?
Yeah, the best way to reinforce like the key takeaways is through a use case. And so Gong is actually one of our customers. And so the business problem at Gong was they were looking to target very top-end enterprise accounts, but they were having the challenge of actually cutting through the noise, right? Just engaging the entire buying committee. And so Laura, who's a senior account-based marketing manager, she partnered with Sendoso, and she incorporated personalized gifting into her ABM strategy. So as you can see, she leveraged the concept of pinata here and really build memorable experiences, especially around the Christmas holidays, right? And then and the entire ABM strategy was then orchestrated and coordinated with SDRs to have follow-up cadences and Salesforce and outreach. Now here's the best part, right? After Laura incorporated personalized gifting into her ABM strategy, she saw 5.5 million source in pipeline, 50% increase in meeting show rates, overall pipeline of 33 million that was influenced, and then 14% lift in conversion rates. So, use cases such as Gong demonstrate that incorporating the power of personalized gifting as part of a ABM strategy definitely drives business outcomes.
This is great. Thank you both so much. This has been such a great session, so valuable. I love talking about how we can build better connections between people. I think that's just such an important thing that we need to talk more about.